slowly. Heidi, you're no stranger to us. It's always good to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, there we go. There's Athena. Athena, can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly. Hello. Good evening, Hugo, and good evening, Heidi.
Hello. Welcome.
Welcome, Athena. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you. I was just about to do our introduction. So I see we've had some people join recently. So my name is Hugo. I'm from CambriLearn, and I specialize in dealing with partners and all our collaborators, all our schools and tutor centers that help school our kids in a hybrid way. And also our other services, our allied services. So here we're talking of Heidi's, for example, who does university placement. We'll hear more about it from her side. And we've got exciting innovations on our own in-house offering, and that's why Athena has joined us. So I think let's start with you, Athena, actually, because you're not known to our audience. Heidi and I have hosted webinars before. So tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind, and how you fit into CambriLearn, because I don't think people know.
Thank you very much, Hugo, and thank you for inviting me to join you guys today. I've really been looking forward to this. So my name is Athena Clayton, and I'm an educational psychologist. I've been working as an ed psych for over 10 years now, and I work in school settings. I've been working at a school in Johannesburg for this is my 9th year, and there's very little about the field that I don't love. I think it's the best job in the world. And finding careers and helping people feel excited about careers has always been something that I've loved doing. So the career counseling and the career aspects has always been something I've loved. In fact, I started my career doing my internship at the Wits University Counseling and Careers Development Unit. So a lot of my work has always had a very strong emphasis on career counseling and career assessments. And I know we're going to touch on a little bit of that today. So I'm really excited. And yeah, I think that's a little bit about myself.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So in a way, Athena, can I call you, I know we're a virtual school, but can I call you our resident educational psychologist? Is that a fair description?
It's a new affiliation, yes. And
by affiliation.
Yes.
Yes. You have a job at a physical school too, in other words. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. But we'll deep dive what services you're offering specifically for CambriLearn, because you are offering bespoke services, and we'll unpack those with career guidance in mind, and also subject choice assessing. That's what you're offering. And I'm well versed in the careers counseling unit at Wits, because I did my own career assessment there. Actually, I remember as an undergrad. In fact, I first did it, I think, when I was at school. I think they accepted, they do, they allow scholars to do it.
Yes, they do. Yes.
Yeah, so I remember doing it at school, going there, and then doing it as a postgrad, no, as an undergrad. I think I did it when changing faculties. That's right, because I went from one faculty to the other. So yeah, I've used them twice. And they were superb in those days. Yeah. So taking me back to my student days. Okay. But we'll talk more about that now. Okay. And then Heidi, welcome. As I say, welcome back, because you and I have been on webinars together before. Heidi, tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to CambriLearn, because you have several connections.
Thank you. What I'm most interested in, Hugo, is what did they tell you should be when you grow up, and have you grown up yet? That's my question.
Come on, you know me, Heidi. Will I ever grow up?
So my name is Heidi Salkus. My business is called The Learner's Journey, and I worked at, well, let me take a step back. So my background, my educational background is I'm actually a geotechnical engineer by training. I have an undergrad in structural engineering and a postgrad in geotechnical engineering. And I worked as an engineer for almost 13 years. Now I'm a recovering engineer. And since I walked away from engineering, I've had this is my 6th career change since then. So I'm probably that person who confounds people like you, Athena, who does, because I never had a clue what I wanted to be. And when something came along, I just went, oh, well, that sounds fun. I'll do that. But I first was connected with CambriLearn because I had a daughter who decided to leave school at the beginning of grade 9 to travel the world and play tennis, and decided to take herself onto the Cambridge curriculum so that she could travel and study at the same time. And we went from one tutor to another to try to find an effective platform for her to learn on so that she didn't have to teach herself, until we finally arrived at CambriLearn, which was an answer to prayer. So that was our first connection to CambriLearn. And she actually went on to Arizona State University and beyond from the CambriLearn system. And then I was involved as an agent, actually, in the higher education industry when my daughter started looking for places to go to university. She wanted to go to the States. She has a US passport, but she is a domestic international. So she was seen as an international in some ways and a domestic in others. And so we had to kind of solve that problem. And I got involved in the university industry about a little over 4 years ago, and ended up becoming an agent for about 300 international universities, and did that for nearly 4 years. And then at the beginning of August of this year, I decided I didn't want to, I did a lot of advising of students, and I didn't want to be limited to just advising on 300 universities. I wanted to be able to advise on 25,000 universities around the world. So I've become an independent university guidance counselor, mostly working. I don't really advise locally. I advise mostly for kids in South Africa wanting to go internationally and be, go to do tertiary education internationally from South Africa. And I've counseled kids from the States wanting to go to Europe, and from Zimbabwe and from Mauritius and from various places. So it's just working in that international space. I still maintain a lot of relationships with the universities that I repped for, but there's just so much to learn. And that's what I love about being in the university space, is that I get people from Athena, kids like from Athena, or, other, educational psychologists who know what they want to do, but like, how do we get from there to where we're off mom and dad's payroll on the other side of university? Because I mean, that's what we want our kids to do, is to go to university and become independent. So I try to fit what they're expecting of university with what it is they want to study, with the right fit of university. And we have to break down country and type of university, type of program, all of those things. So I kind of am the bridge from Athena to finding the right university. I think that was very long-winded. I apologize, but that's what I do.
No, I think that's covered a lot of ground, which I did want to emphasize that tonight for our audience. Please note, we're focusing on international university placement, which Cambridge is often used for, even by locals, so even if you're a South African, but if you're intending to study abroad, then of course the Cambridge international qualifications are a great route that way. And that's why Heidi's here tonight. We will have a follow-up specifically focusing on local university placements, because of course you can also use Cambridge qualifications to go locally, right? Because there's often a misunderstanding. People presume that by qualifying with Cambridge IGCSE or A-level, you have to then go abroad, that it's not recognized in South Africa. It's fully recognized in every country in which we operate, including locally. Okay, so it doesn't bind you to having to go abroad, but it's an ideal passport to international study. It is. Okay, we can find out more about that, because I did invite some people who are looking to study abroad tonight. So if you're there and you've got questions, tonight's an opportunity to ask the experts. I'm just the host. I don't have the answers, but the people before us have the answers. So use it, take your chance. Okay, but Athena, so let's take a step back actually, because Heidi has mentioned that she's the bridge between you and international universities and placement thereof. Okay, that's true. But it has to begin with you, right, in a way, because otherwise, how do they know what they wish to study? So that's what's new in CambriLearn, right? And that's what you're offering. So can you just detail for us, what is it, the two basic services that you're offering that actually enable people to get a sense of their pathway to university, to international or local study?
Right. Thank you so much for the question, Hugo. And I think the two processes are quite different, but very similar in a way as well, as in the actual setup of both processes is quite similar, but the purpose is slightly different. The first is the subject choice process, which is at the end of grade 9, where students need to decide what set of subjects will they focus on, what are they essentially going to specialize on for the remainder of their secondary education, whether it's through Cambridge or the South African system, whatever it may be. And the process there is an interview to try and get a sense of the child, what sort of things really matter to them, what kinds of things make them feel really proud of their work, what are some moments when they just felt like everything's just gelling together perfectly, what are some of the challenges and what have been some of the challenges in the educational journey up until that point, just so you can kind of get to know the person. And then that is complemented by a very thorough battery of psychometric tests, which examine all sorts of things. What's the student's aptitude? So what sorts of things are they good at? What are their strengths? What things are they interested in? And sometimes there is a correlation. We tend to like the things that we are good at because it's just a little bit easier for us and we experience more success. But sometimes we like things that maybe just are a good fit for our personalities, even if it is something that's a little bit more of a struggle for us. It's still something that is of interest to us and something that kind of motivates us for a different reason. And after looking at the results of the psychometric tests and considering the content of the interview, I sit down with the students and we would pick out the subjects that would really be a good fit for that student. That would hopefully give them a little bit of direction in terms of what set of subjects would they probably experience most success in, and would help lead them hopefully towards their future career goals, or even though that's a few steps away. And then in grade 11, sometimes grade 12, but usually grade 11 around then, I offer the career choice assessments. So with the career choice, it's a very similar process where there's a narrative interview and it's really very in-depth. And at that point, the students have already picked the subjects that they want to focus on. And we can talk about that. And also, how did you make that decision? What factors did you take into your decision making? Who guided you at that point? Were there any things that maybe you would have done differently if you could have gone back in time? So all of those kinds of questions are all really important. What have been some of the highlights of your educational journey up until now? And then we do, again, that rigorous set of assessments. We look at all sorts of things. We look at things like, what sort of values would you seek in a workplace that really kind of matches the things that matter to you? So if you're a person who really you want to make a difference in the world, you would maybe want to work in a particular type of industry. If you're an individual where you really enjoy creating artistic visions, for example, you might want to work in a different industry. If you're somebody who really enjoys getting to meet different people every day and you like kind of the hustle and bustle, you might not want to work in a cubicle. Some people really love that kind of, that they like the routine. They like the being able to predict exactly what will happen the following day. They like that. And so you take all of that data again and you examine the possible career options that are available to them. And it's really, I find both processes to be so lovely. It's a process of self-exploration. And I think what's so lovely about it is people often receive, they feel a sense of clarity, often with the process, and a sense of direction. And it's so nice to have a service like what Heidi offers, because often at this point, there's so much enthusiasm and they just kind of want to get going, because now they've got a sense, right, I'm going to apply for this wonderful career and I can't wait. And then they think, okay, but wait, what's the next step? And so often from my side, I can maybe give directions in terms of these are the types of universities that might offer it. And this is maybe what you would need. But I think what Heidi offers is a far more comprehensive process in that regard. So Hugo, I don't know if I've explained my processes fully, if you'd like more clarity on anything I've explained up until now.
We'll deep dive it. Thank you, Athena. But I think that just lays out the two services. So it's a subject choice assessment that you're offering and a career guidance assessment. And if I heard correctly, the career guidance assessment is done around year 11, 12. So 17, 18 years of age, roughly, normally. And then the subject choice assessment, is that done in year 9? Is there a minimum age for that?
I think 13, 14 is usually, you would probably be the youngest age, 15 or so, 14, 15 is the typical age.
Having said that, actually, and Heidi, you and I were joking about, well, you just mentioned how many career changes you've had in your life, and we, wondering when I'm going to grow up. But certainly I've done 3 career assessments in my life, and I'm sure it's not the last one. So even adults can take up your service. Am I right, Athena? I mean, there's nothing, there's no age restriction.
Definitely not. And I think these days it's more common to find people changing not just jobs and job titles, but careers entirely. I think many of the students that I worked with at CCDU at WITS, it was very similar to you, where they'd started with one field and they were really still interested in it, but they kind of wanted to explore a different facet of their personality. And I think that's really quite common these days. And I think there are so many more jobs also that are being created pretty much as we speak that really blend the different elements together so nicely. So I think that we'll see more and more people as adults exploring career counseling services. Definitely.
Yeah, so this is open to our parents as much as it is to their children. There's a minimum age, but there isn't actually a maximum age. Really.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Obviously, the subject choice assessment is particular to scholars, because there you'd be selecting your subjects for graduating from school. Okay, so it would be your year 9, right? Which is that junction, that critical flexion point in your school career where you've got to choose your subjects that you wish to finish school with. And that's where I see Heidi coming in there. Actually, that can be a critical junction, because if you have the intention there of going abroad, you need to know, even staying local, you need to know what are the requirements in terms of subject choices, because, Cambridge is a subject by subject system, and you can compile your own school leaving qualification, right, Heidi? So this would need some guidance at this point as to what are the requirements for the territory you wish to apply to.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, I keep looking down because, Athena, I'm madly taking notes about what you're saying on my piece of paper in front of me. So I'm not being rude. I'm just taking notes. It is important. There's some countries that you go to, like the States, that actually, as long as you have math and English and you have a social science and a laboratory science, you can actually do anything. There aren't prerequisites like there are for programs here, like there are for programs in other countries. So it's very important to kind of focus on, they may not know exactly if they want to go internationally. Some kids international means Mauritius, some kids it means the States, some it means Australia. So it depends on what international means. But I'm just going to take a step back, when we talk about subject choices, because I had in the last couple of days 2 very interesting homeschooled CambriLearn students, well, one Cambridge at Generations and one a CambriLearn student, who have asked me to help them. And 2 very interesting cases that I've come across. The one, she's done 4 AS levels and 2 A levels, very good student, A's and B's. She and some of the universities that she has chosen to apply to, even though her grades are very good, the grouping of her exams was a problem. So this is a very interesting issue, which Athena, I don't know if you come across this, but certainly when you get a lot of homeschoolers, they go, okay, I'm going to take 2 IGs this year. I'm going to study for these 2, then I'm going to take them, then I'm going to take 2 more next year. There are a lot of the higher end universities will not accept them taken at different sittings. So We actually, with my daughter, stumbled into doing it the right way, completely unplanned. But she took her 5 IGs in one sitting and her 1 AS 6 months later, which was considered the same sitting in the same year. If she had not done that, she would have not have gotten accepted. Well, she may have gotten accepted, but it would have taken a whole lot more gyrations. Now, there's some high-end universities, well, highly ranked universities that will not accept A levels unless they are all sat at the same time. So if you want to go to UC Dublin for anything, you have to have 3 A levels. They all have to be sat together. Very unusually will they take those taken at different sittings, and that's sat together in the same sitting. They don't even like at the same year, like if you do a May and November. So what's very important to homeschoolers, it's exceptionally important, and then this has come up over and over again, is that yes, the subject choice is important, but the planning and the scheduling of your exams is crucial for university education. Now, and Athena, will be able to guide the kids to make sure they're prepared for these exams, on this date and these exams on that date. You need to focus. Like I have another child who doesn't have A levels, but he took 10 IGs at one time and 4 AS levels at one time and has all A's and A stars. So he is actually a more attractive candidate than a child who has only has 2 A levels and 4 AS levels, but sat at different times. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you're making perfect sense.
So even though homeschooling and the Cambridge curriculum is a bit free-forming, you've got a lot of flexibility and a lot of choice, and it's great and it's amazing in that way, which I love about the Cambridge system. But that is the one area that I see the struggle for me as dealing with university admissions with kids who have not purposefully scheduled their exams. So I asked why this is, and the admissions officer at UC Dublin said to me, because if a child is not taking 3 A levels at the same time, they're not demonstrating to us that they'll be able to handle a university education where you're taking multiple classes at the same time. We don't consider them being prepared for university. So sorry, that is kind of an aside. I don't really know what topic I'm supposed to be talking about, but those were
That's very pertinent, actually. I brought you in at this point because, we were talking about subject choices. And like you said, it's not even just about selecting the right groupings of subjects, but it's also about, when it comes to Cambridge, because it is so free-form, it's about planning your exam sittings as well.
Very important.
Very important. So you see, there's a lot of discretion and choice in the Cambridge system, but then you've got to tailor it to each territory. What are their requirements? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what makes it so tricky.
Because remember, when most people are looking at a Cambridge curriculum, whether you go to Canada or Nicosia or the States or whatever, they look at Cambridge and they think UK. They don't think homeschool. And so what do they do in the UK? They take anywhere from 8 to 11 IGCSEs, then they take 6 AS levels for a year, and then they take their 3 AS levels for another year. And it's very structured. So when they see Cambridge, they expect to see all those IGs taken together, all the AS taken together, all the A levels taken together. Now, homeschoolers exist in every curriculum. There are people who homeschool. So there is, like, I have very successfully argued for several students in America who had a wacko record as far as when they took their exams, but they were also athletes. So I said, listen, this is, and I had to do a lot of justification to get the admissions officer to actually have a look and consider that this child, even though you may not consider him prepared because he didn't take all his exams at the same time, he was also juggling basically a professional tennis career. while he was studying and traveling the world. So he has developed a lot of other muscles that kids who are starting at university now haven't yet. So, but that's my job as a counselor, to help with that, to help kids with that if they need that support in that way. But the Cambridge curriculum, listen, it's recognized worldwide. Subject choice it's important to know, like I said before, country-wise, because there are different requirements for what is required subject-wise before you start. Yeah.
Can I give you just an example, Heidi, if I may, just to ground it? So, for example, to go to university in South Africa with Cambridge, you need a second language. Okay, it does not have to be a South African second language. So, yes, it's traditionally done, Afrikaans, very occasionally isiZulu, but mostly Afrikaans is the preferred second language of South African students who are going to South African universities, and Namibians too. Although you could take German in Namibia, for example, as a second language. But the point is, even South Africans can gain entrance to university in South Africa with a world language as a second language. So you could take French, that's why we offer it, but you could take Mandarin. It doesn't matter. A world language will still qualify you for entrance into South African universities as a second language on Cambridge. This is Cambridge specific. But if you're going abroad, I think, Heidi, you'll agree, most countries don't care if you have a second language or not, right?
For the most part, that's true.
For the most part. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, if you do, there are a couple of exceptions depending on what you choose to study. Like, if you want the dual BA program, Trinity Columbia, you need to have multiple languages because it's a BA program. In the States, they like a second language as a BA at a lot of universities, but you can take it while you're in university. If you want to be, you don't need it for acceptance. If you want to be exempted, you can take a spoken test, a test where they talk to you in whatever the language it is, to be exempt from having to take it at university, but you can take it. And in the States, in many universities, you can actually take a computer language as your second language.
Oh, wow.
Which is what I did. Okay. I took Fortran, which is a language that doesn't exist anymore. Probably.
I remember
I don't
Fortran.
even know.
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, but I remember Fortran. Yeah. I think we're roughly the same age, Heidi. We discussed. Okay, so now, Athena, I'm going to bring you back here because now let's try and understand your process. How does someone book to be tested by you and to be interviewed by you? To have that narrative, the process, and I can guide them by showing the screen, but it is through our website. Okay. But tell us the processes, please. Just what is the steps?
Okay, so the website, which is very well designed, there are different options there, and the one specifies career assessment, and the other one, the one specifies subject choice assessment, and the other one specifies career assessment. What will happen is I will receive an email saying that John Smith has booked an assessment, and I will then contact them, forward them all the documents that they need, an email explaining what the process is about, consent forms, all of that. And then we schedule a time for the interview. As I said, in the mornings and early afternoons, I do work at a school. So I also do have specific hours when I am available. There is some flexibility though, including weekends. So I'll send through a couple of different times, and then we'll set up our appointments for our Zoom session. So it will be similar to the setup where it will be myself and the individual, and we will have an interview that usually lasts for about an hour. And it's a very narrative process where we really look at that individual's journey up until that point. The educational journey. So even though they are only in their 9th year of study, they still experience quite a lot if they're doing their subject choice assessments. At that point, they have a good sense of what works, what doesn't work, what their educational success stories have been, some of the challenges that they've had. the advice that they've received. From what I remember from my own process and from my siblings' process, everybody had some advice to give. Family members, family friends, teachers, everybody gives advice, and some of it is similar and some of it is completely contradictory. And then somewhere in the middle of all that is the student's own thoughts about the whole process. So all of that gets explored. And then I explain the psychometric process. And the psychometric process is all done online. And I explain what the process is about. The key to the online tests is it is all typically multiple choice. And the key to all multiple choice questions, especially of the psychometric nature, is don't overthink it. So I explain all of that, and then I send through the links to the assessments. Those have to be completed in the individual's own time. Typically, the links will last for about a week. And I think it is best to try and get those psychometric tests done as quickly as possible. Just because you also don't want the process to continue for too long. You do want there to be a very confined process. And then I get notified when all of the assessments have been completed. I look at the scores, put them all together, and then schedule a feedback session. And the feedback session is, it draws a little bit from the interview as well as the psychometrics. And then we look at what do the results tend to indicate. What does this tell us about what the best possible subject choice options may be? It's a very similar process if it's a career assessment, only then we're not looking at subjects, we're looking at possible careers. So what kind of career field would be a good fit for you, given everything that we know about you up until this point? What would be a good career choice for you right now? There's, as we've already discussed, there's a growing tendency, I think, in society for people to change and to grow. And this is really reflective, I think, of society's needs. There's something now about people who are constantly seeking self-fulfillment, and they're being driven to explore their purpose and to explore their talents in more ways and in creative ways, in different ways and in different settings. So you know, the career process is really true to how the individual is right now and in the foreseeable future. It's not to say that there won't be future growth in, you know, moving forward, but for right now, what would be a good fit for them right now? And then I send through the report. They can go through it. They can obviously come back to me if there are any questions. And then I guess that would be a good opportunity for them to be in touch with somebody like Heidi, if they are looking for a little bit more of the specifics about the what now. With the subject choice, I suppose they can already contact Heidi if they are considering going overseas. It does sound, Heidi, that as though it's never too early to contact you, even if it's in year 9. So yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and I really like what, sorry, go ahead, Hugo.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. I really like what you said, Athena, about that this is what your career choice, sorry, I'm looking down at my notes. I probably will get wrong exactly what you said, but what your career choice should be at this point, and your whole, what you said about change, because I see that a lot. And it's so, I mean, I'll give you a few examples, but I think it's important. It's a really important thing that you said there, is that it's for now, and it's okay if you want to change. And what I tell a lot of kids, because this has been my experience, it's been my experience with my daughter, my husband, you know, we is that your first degree is actually, in my opinion, about figuring out who you are. And it doesn't actually matter what that piece of paper is. You're going to develop as a person and have these life experiences and your soft skills and your communication, and you're going to learn how to network. That's the most important thing you can learn, is how to network. when you're at university. And when you come out, whoever you are interviewing with is not hiring the piece of paper. They're hiring you. And so it actually doesn't, I think it's, I have a lot of kids who get really wigged out about, okay, but what am I going to be at the end? I don't know. You can be whatever you want to be at the end, you know, because actually the process of becoming is what's going to get you that job. And that you finished a degree is actually almost more important than what the degree is. And so the career assessment is a starting point. And it's an important thing that it's not ever a finish point, because life is about growing and changing and pivoting when you feel that the time is right or you discover something new. Because when kids go overseas, a lot of times they're immigrating alone, right, as an 18-year-old. Mm-hmm. And there they go, there they are, you know, no mom and dad, no boundaries that mom and dad put in place. Now it's up to them. Now they've got to figure out what's important to them. They have to develop their moral compass and their values and all of those things that have to come into place. They change a lot. And sometimes what happens is they realize they chose their study path based on a career that in their mind, they thought their parents wanted them to do. And sometimes they don't realize that till they've left home. It happened with my child. I am speaking from experience. I was a scientist. I probably, and I remember myself saying this, and I remember my parents saying this to me, if you're a scientist, you will always have a job, right? Not true now, but, you know, I've always had a job or had a business or whatever. So it seemed to be true. So my daughter thought she needs to go to university and study science. All her cousins the same age studying science, because then they're all going to be assured of a job at the other end. Well, 2 years down the road, I won't go into the whole story. My daughter is now in the music industry. She started in science, and none of her evaluations said that she should do science, but she is smart and she could do it, so she did science. And actually, if we had listened to somebody like you, Athena, we never would have gone down the science route, but she was worried about being a starving artist, so she did science. But now she's not a starving artist, but she's in the music industry. So my point is that sometimes kids only hear their own voice once they've left. And you know, everybody has to recover from their childhood. We all do, right? I mean, sorry, I'm getting a bit out there, but you know, when you change environment and you're living on your own, some kids may not change. Maybe they're better parents than I was. They really listen to their children and they really, you know, figure it out before they leave. But mine didn't until after she left. And, you know, we had to get out of the way. And sometimes that's what happens, is you have to get out of the way so your child can actually figure it out for themselves. Because things change. Sorry, that's my soapbox, my diatribe.
Nice words and from experience. Thank you. I just want to answer one of my clients, actually, Mira. Welcome, welcome. Mira has asked what your website is, Athena. So actually, as we suggested, I'm actually going to share my screen and show people how to actually book your service, if I may. Okay, so Mira, literally, yeah, let me show you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with all the participants. So ladies, please just tell me if you can see my screen now. It should read International British Curriculum. Okay, so Mira, you literally go onto the fees schedule, which you can see on the top of your dashboard. You don't even have to be logged in. I happen to be logged in. You can see it's greeting me. Hi, Hugo. But you can actually just browse the fees schedule and you go down to Educational Psychologist and you click on that. This is on the Cambridge catalog. We have a CAPS catalog, but the CAPS catalog does not have the educational services on offer. Of course, you can take the services too as a CAPS curriculum student. Please don't be scared to, but we just loaded it under Cambridge for now because it's more pertinent, I suppose, to the internationally minded, but not exclusively so. And then once you select that, you can see it comes up with the two options, career guidance assessment and subject choice assessment. Okay, and you literally add it like you would all our other subjects. You add it to your shopping cart, you check out. What's nice, and I want to actually emphasize this, Athena, I noticed that there's a once off price, which, by the way, in translating in South African rands, it's roughly about 4,000 Rand for the career guidance assessment, 3,000 Rand for the subject choice assessment, which is actually, very, very affordable by market standards, I have to say. But what's interesting, Athena, is you can actually pay it off monthly, and that's quite unusual. I think you'll agree. Most educational psychology services, there are no payment plans, right? I mean, you have to pay the fee, maybe not upfront, but maybe in two parts, a consultation fee and then, pay once you get the report kind of thing. But here you can actually pay the service off over 10 months. So there's an easy payment plan here, Athena. Would you agree? Hey? That's quite unusual, actually.
It definitely is, yes.
Yeah, so it actually makes it even more affordable. And let me tell you, I just had a meeting with a counselor in Switzerland. So just to benchmark this internationally, and their going rate for career guidance assessment is, wait for it, 12,000 Rand. Yeah. So this is still very affordable, guys. Okay, so I hope I've answered your question, Mary. You literally go shopping for it online. What will happen is, once you've purchased it, whether on a monthly system or upfront, you will be contacted by Athena, because like Athena says, she'll automatically be emailed at her CambriLearn address to be notified that someone has purchased, and then she will reach out to you and she will take you through the next step. Is that right, Athena? Great. Okay. All right. So, so I'm no longer sharing. I'm back with you. So I just had another thought now on this career guidance and subject choice assessment. What are the turnaround times? Because that's another concern. I know people often find they wait weeks for the report and for the feedback. So how much time does the psychometric testing actually take? You may have mentioned it, but if you don't mind just clarifying again. And then how long before we get the feedback? What's the process?
So, like I said, the actual assessments themselves are to be completed in the individual's own time. I like to give them a week. I don't think more than a week is, I think there are some circumstances where it is what it is, and sometimes somebody does need longer. But I think ideally it would be best to have a more confined and contained process. So we have the interview and they already start almost from that moment with the psychometrics. There are quite a few, and we can definitely pace them. So like 1 a day or 2 a day or whatever it may be. But I like to leave a week for the full process in terms of the psychometrics. I do need a couple of days just to integrate everything together. There's a lot of data to put together, and sometimes there's a little bit of research that I need to do, especially if there are some more unusual career paths that it's leading me towards. And I do want to be able to answer some at least basic questions if anybody would like to unpack some of the possible career options a little bit more fully. And the idea would be that the report would be released within 2 days, one or 2 days of the interview. So it should be quite a compact process. I would like to schedule. So if somebody had to book an assessment tomorrow, I would like to reach out within a day to schedule a the initial interview. So the full process should take about 2 weeks. It should be very, should be quite a concise process. There are some documents that I would require as well for the process, and I didn't mention this earlier. It is useful to look at school reports as well, just to get a sense of how the individual manages with the subjects. I know for me, for example, I loved mathematics. I really did. I was one of those students who loved maths. It was really never my strong point. So if somebody was sitting with me and looking at my reports, they would definitely very wisely guide me away from considering a career as a mathematician. That was something that I'd been considering. Sometimes you do need somebody to just also look at the marks and also say, well, look, we also need to have the lens of, let's look at the marks. What are your strengths in terms of your performance? where do you tend to perform the best? Where are some of the areas where you tend to struggle in terms of marks? And even there, sometimes it's part of the discussion. So you say you don't enjoy history, for example, but I see that you tend to get 70s or 80s. Let's talk about why you don't like the subject. What is it about the subject that you don't like? Or vice versa. So you say you love mathematics. And yet for the last 2 years, you've really struggled to to achieve a mark over 50. Why do you think that might be? And sometimes there is something we can do about it. So sometimes a student may really enjoy a subject, but may really struggle to put pen to paper. They've got all the content in their minds. They really can talk about the subject in detail and with great insight, but they just cannot put their thoughts down on paper. They can't organize it. And that's the sort of thing that we can definitely assist them with. So the interview process would also help to identify those kinds of discrepancies and often sometimes also guide towards a path of a solution, if that makes sense. And then in addition to school reports, like I said, I would need the consent from the parents and an assent from the child as well, just so that I've got all of the paperwork in place. And then 2 weeks for the full process, usually. Yeah.
Excellent. It's actually very compact.
It is. If for whatever reason the child does need more time, so say, for example, they contact me today and they say, we're really excited, but listen, we're going away next week. So if that sort of thing happens, then obviously there would be a delay. But all things being equal, we're looking at a 2-week process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now, thanks very much, Athena, for that. That's, I think, now very clear. Heidi, I actually don't know your costs. I don't know if you have, like certain stipulated costs for your consulting services. I'm actually not sure also of your process. So do you want to describe how your process goes? Because I know you're outsourced services. You're not, we can't book you on our website. So they'd have to go through your website, right?
Yeah, okay. So they can go to my website, which is www.learnersjourney.co.za. Please be patient with me. I am a techno idiot, and my website is still in process. It's actually currently being worked on behind the scenes because I am releasing a new publication in January that's very exciting, that will be going distributed throughout CambriLearn for free of charge. And it's specifically a guide to, it's called University Speaking, a guide to international, how you apply to international universities. So, but my process is you can go to the website or you can email me directly, and I'm heidi@learnersjourney.co.za. You can go onto the website and do a contact me. There's a little bit of information there. But what I do is I normally sit with a child. I get these, and today I had about 6 phone calls from panicked parents who go, oh my God, my child's about to finish matric and he wants to go to England and we have no idea what to do. And so then so I kind of walk them through the process, tell them what it takes to actually get an application done or, to apply. And then what I do is I schedule a time with a student. Normally it's better that this, especially if they're matrics, grade 11, grade 12, for them to meet me alone, though there are some kids who want parents there so that they can listen for things that they may have missed. So it's up to the student. I don't, either way, it's totally up to them and how they feel comfortable. And then, so my initial session would be to look at their reports, which I'll ask them for ahead of time. And then we'll discuss if they've had a career assessment, what it is that they're looking to major in. Some kids go, I have no clue. And then we kind of, I chat to them about what their strengths are, what their interests are. We talk about, and I run through, I've got a list of about 20 questions that I run through with them on what they're expecting from their university experience. So do they want to go to the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere? Are time zones an issue? Big campus, small campus, type of learning, language barriers, going to a country where English, a whole lot of things like that. We'll spend about an hour to an hour and a half. And then based on our discussion, what I usually do is send them an email with a whole lot of links to various programs for them to research. So now it's time, this is their fact-finding mission. Now it's time for them to engage and to do their research. I'm not going to push them. It's then up to them to come back to me if they need more, or if they haven't found what they're looking for, because I don't say that I'm spot on every time. I'm not. But what I expect from the student is for them to do their research, engage with the process, start thinking about and making their checklist of what it is that they want. So I coach them to make a spreadsheet of all the things that are important to them. And when they go onto university websites, these are the things that you're looking for. And you need to put your check boxes into the places of the things that are important to you. And then we might go back and forth a few times, and via email. And then the goal is to finalize a list of 5 to 7 universities before they start their matric mid-year exams. That's ideal. This is in an ideal world. So I have a lot of matrics coming to me now because they've ignored everything until now. So then the timeline's a bit more compressed. Ideally, they need to focus on their exams, mid-year prelim finals, and then after they're at go to rage, come back, get over their hangover, they phone me, and then we do applications. So that's the timeline. And usually by the time they've gotten through their exams, they've also thought a little bit more about their choices, and we narrow it down a little more depending on where they want to apply. If they only want to go to the UK, they are allowed 5 universities, so there are different criteria as far as that goes. Yeah, so that's the process. And then my initial consultation fee for 2021, the fees are going to go up next year, but currently it's 900 Rand. So I keep it low cost to be very accessible. What is very important to me, and what the focus of University Speaking is, the magazine as well, is to be a source of unbiased, accurate information that's easy to access. So that's what it is that I'm doing. And then if they want help with their application, so filling in UCAS profiles and StudyLink and all of that, then that's an additional fee. It's currently $450. That fee is also going up next year. And then I also do group counseling sessions at schools, where I go to the school and I'll work with 30 kids at a time, and I take them through the Learner's Journey counseling program as a group, and we discuss things in a group. And I do that at schools. It's currently sponsored. It has been sponsored through the end of this year by Enterprise Ireland, which is fantastic. So it's been at a low cost. But next year it'll be 3,000 Rand for a group counseling session at a school for up to 30 children. And then besides that group counseling session, I also do skills training to get kids ready for university. And that's a whole nother curriculum that's kind of in process. Yeah.
Well, thank you. So that's actually, I've just learned about your service in detail. I realized I've never really asked you these questions. So thanks, Heidi. And I have to say your service sounds very affordable. My goodness, there's people out there charging, fortunes for this kind of service.
I know. And, this is something that I wanted to, that's something that I kind of had to battle with. But, I also have these relationships with universities that I can never guarantee kids to be admitted. But having come from that space, I also know that I am not going to curate a lot. There are a lot of services that charge a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And when I was going through this process, I talked to a lot of the universities that I worked with to help me with that decision. I do not curate a child's application or their CV. I don't believe in that. That's me. That's my personal belief. If a child is going to get into Cambridge, they're going to get into Cambridge organically because of the child that they are and how they have been coached as far as what courses they need to take and all of that. I do not believe in curating. So if you want somebody to do that because you are desperate to get into an Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, 100% go and find somebody who's going to help you do that. I am very upfront. I won't do that. I'm about information. And I can connect kids. Like I now have set up a few kids like with their faculty at their chosen universities that they want to apply to. I go, hey, you know, if you wanted to be a postgrad there, the best thing is to talk to the professor who's in charge of that program. Can I set you up? And I pick up the phone and I phone the professor and go, listen, I have this student. Can I put you together? Can you help them answer some questions? So that has nothing to do with me. That's just because I've kind of networked in places and said, you know what, if I can put you together, it's going to make them feel good about the student and the student feel good about the information that they're getting. Yeah. So that's where I probably differ from, I mean, I can say Crimson Education. If you really want to get into an Ivy League or Oxbridge, or go to Crimson, you've got a very good chance of getting in. If you come to me, I will tell you what I know about how to get into those universities, but I'm not going to curate, and I'm not going to go and help you, coach you on your SATs or, you know, all of that. I do a lot of personal statement editing. I do that for all students who ask me to. I will help them with that, but I do not change their voice. Their voice is their voice. And so because, and part of the reason is that, well, the biggest reason is that you do all this work to get into a university, and that child, again, like I was saying earlier about recovering from your childhood, they may not realize that actually that university is not really their dream, but they can't tell their parents that. If it is their dream, that's great. Hallelujah. Then go and find somebody like Crimson who is going to get you there. But, you know, I really think that you can get a great education at a lower ranked university and find a place that's a good match for you, as you can at the high prestige universities where you've just slid in there by the skin of your teeth and you are competing and nervous and anxious all the time about maintaining that level of education where it isn't really a fit. I am not you know, putting down Ivy League education or Cambridge or Oxford at all. I mean, they all have their place, but they're not for every child, and it's important to know that. So yeah,
thanks, Heidi. Yeah, and that's very much, I think, with CambriLearn's philosophy in mind as well, of personalized learning and customizing and keeping the child at the center of it, you know, and making sure that their voice is heard. So I love what you just said, and how you differentiated between some of the other offerings, which are preposterously expensive. It's ridiculous, but they're offering something else, like you said. They are offering something.
It's a different service, you know. Right. It's and I think Crimson Education is good at what they do, and if that's what you want and you have the money and that's your budget, hallelujah, go do it. You know, by all means.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Heidi. So we're actually running out of time. Can you believe it? So I'm going to give the final word to Athena, because actually a lot of the stuff that recovering from your childhood, amongst other things that Heidi raised, is actually deeply psychological. So I'm going to leave the final word to Athena, to our psychologist. Athena.
Gosh, thank you. First of all, I just want to say, Heidi, I learned so much listening to you. I had no idea, just thinking about going overseas, there were so many variables when you were just talking about small versus larger campuses. And I was thinking, gosh, you know, there's so many small things that you would have to, that they're big decisions, but there would be things that I wouldn't even have thought to ask, you know, and I think it's so interesting just to hear that perspective. And I agree with you in terms of what I do want to say, just in terms of your daughter's process, so that it's obviously, I think that the journey is the journey, and there's no mistakes really in the journey. It just brings us closer to our understanding of ourselves. And I think some people have got to study science before they realize that their soul really is a musician, you know, the soul of a musician. And maybe it's the scientific principles that help bring out the joy of the music. I don't know, but sometimes, you know, the passion might not have been as intense if she hadn't gone through that whole process. I don't think there's ever a wasted moment or wasted experience. It all brings us closer to who we are, and it gives us insights.
I agree. Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
So
Beautiful words. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. And thank you, Mira. There we go. So the family's watching us tonight, and it's been very informative. It has. It's actually been very mind-blowing in some senses. I've learned so much. And I've been in discussions with Heidi for years, and there's stuff I learned for the first time. So, wow, exciting. I think I need to do a career assessment.
I'm scared of career assessments. Then I'm going to have to change and go on to career number 8, probably.
So thank you very much, ladies. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Athena. I think it's been eye-opening. It's been insightful. It's been challenging, but there's a lot on offer here. And I hope our students take up the service. I would encourage you to, and our centers as well, to recommend this. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. We will do this again, Athena. Like we said, we'll host another one specifically focused on South African universities, and we'll have a South African university placement specialist. But thank you so much, both of you, and thank you, audience. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.